three of the candidates here tonight have used the word rights and values quite frequently in the early stages of this debate.
Never used the word values.
You're right.
Lindy, you gentlemen used the word rights.
Yeah.
So proceeding down that path, the next question would be, the list of, quote, rights that are demanded by the government, or demanded of the government by American citizens, appears to be growing to include, for instance, the right to free health care, the right to affordable housing, and the right to a job. Is there any limit to the number of rights that American citizens should expect the government to recognize? And we'll start with you, Michael, because we started with Lynn in the first question.
Well, like that, we, as Americans, have a right to not have a job and not have any of those things if we choose to not have those. I've done extensive work with homeless communities, especially with homeless vets, and over the last 20 years. And there are a lot of people that could have been in halfway houses or could have done a lot of things to have housing. They've chosen to exercise their right to actually not do those things. So I don't necessarily think a job or health care or housing is a right. Now, is it the obligation of government to take care of people? Well, not necessarily, but we have certainly stripped away a lot of the powers of the church in the past. And we're not necessarily a people that is, I would say, we're charitable people. We like to actually help others. At least I do. And I know that probably everybody in here has given a charity or has been involved in their church or in their religious organization. And as such that when we can, we do like to reach out and help people, but you can't force people to take help. You can't force people to take a job. You can't force people. By the same token, you don't have to do things, for them, but we do. I always believe that there was a group of people that deserve our charity: our children, our elderly, and our disabled. Outside of those groups, then really people need to stand on their own 2 feet and do for themselves, not expect it to be done for them.
Chris, same question.
Yeah. I hear an awful lot about that. Well, a lot of folks like to talk about their rights and their right to a speedy trial, their right to bear arms, and I think those are important rights. And then they want to lump in, like you suggested, the right to health care, the right to a place to live. And that's a little concerning to me because the government can't guarantee that. Okay, the government has no means by which it can guarantee all of those rights. What I think the discussion should be about in 2012 is what an individual's civic responsibility is. Okay, in other words, hey, if I'm an able-bodied man, I think I have a civic responsibility to go to work, to put myself to use in the community, to go out there and make my family whole. I think that that's my personal and civic responsibility, and I don't think that a government, state, local, or otherwise, should be responsible for me. I think that I should be responsible for myself, and that's where I would like the conversation to turn. Instead of the social contract, where these things are provided to you to be some government body giving you a set of rights, I think that we need to say, hey, there may be such thing as a social contract, but embedded in that is where the larger discussion is, and that is what is my civic responsibility as a citizen of this country? What is my civic responsibility to my family and to the members of my community? So, no, I dispel the notion that every need that a human, that an American has should somehow translate into a right, but instead we need to start talking to folks about what are the civic responsibilities. And so it's a far more interesting conversation, and one that we look to have with folks of all parties, folks of all persuasions. Thank you.
Lynn?
Thank you. I believe in individual responsibility. Certainly, nobody is entitled to a job. I think what some people don't realize is that people have to compete for jobs. And I think there's some people in today's to take care of the poor. I think it's been said that, however, people who can take care of themselves, they should take care of themselves, and the government is supposed to take care of people who can't take care of themselves. And I agree with that. Not everything is a constitutional right. For example, to kind of highlight the difference between myself and the other two candidates here, I oppose gay rights legislation. Homosexuality is not a constitutionally protected right. You can take a look at the U.S. Supreme Court decisions. And both of these gentlemen do support gay rights legislation. I also don't believe that abortion should be a constitutionally protected right, and I would enact legislation to that effect if that is in contrast to both of these other candidates who would not protect life with legislation. And if I'm incorrect, I can be corrected. The healthcare situation, I think Obamacare should be repealed. I think the imbalance in I think we are also responsible for creating the imbalance that gave rise to Obamacare. The health insurance companies had been exempted from antitrust legislation, which gave them the ability to operate without competition, and the premiums were outrageous. They were wrongfully denying claims. They weren't covering people, and so in addition to repealing Obamacare, we're going to have to address the health insurance companies with some serious legislation until the balance of power and things like that can be better balanced out. And then we do need to encourage people and to teach them that they, people who are able need to take care of themselves and get jobs, and that we should not. I don't agree with extending the unemployment benefits further at this time. And I think my time is up.
Thank you very much. I'd like to give both Chris and Mike an opportunity to rebut one of the.
Well, let's start with gay rights, because I do advocate for gay rights. At one time, my friend Chris here would have a drink from a separate drinking fountain, ride in a separate part of the bus, and wouldn't have the ability to even be up here with us. And people thought that was wrong, and they decided that under civil rights that we shouldn't segregate ourselves that way. And under those same civil rights, we shouldn't be constitutionally or actually legally creating a second class of citizen among our GLBTQ members. They should be able to do what they need to do within their community without having to be restricted by the heterosexual majority, just as we don't impose restrictions on the African American minorities or on the Asian American minorities or any of the other minorities in this country. So far as the issue of right to life, I'm the only one of this group that's basically talked about streamlining adoption and early childhood education.
Chris, would you like 1 minute to?
Yeah, I would, because this notion, first let me say this, I would hope that each candidate try to distinguish themselves with their ideas and how they're different. But back to this notion of Chris Field somehow supports gay rights, I don't know where that comes from. I do know this, that all individuals, all American citizens have a right to contract, okay? And I'm fundamentally opposed to any government body taking away a right of an individual to contract, okay? So if that equates to gay rights, I think that's a very, very poor interpretation of what I'm saying, okay? I'm familiar with the far, far less proposals for their gay rights agenda, and no, I do not support that, okay? What I do support is all individuals having the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thank you.
I'll give Lynn 30 seconds to respond.
Thank you. I had asked to be corrected on the pro-life issue. I stated that Mr. Fields would not protect life with legislation. He did not correct me. The only inference to draw is that if you leave it up to everybody, that is pro-choice, and he is pro-choice.
Shifting gears.
Will committee to respond to that?
Very briefly.
And I'll tell folks here, my mother had me when she was 15 years old. If anybody at this panel has a proclivity or a right even, although we toss that notion aside, to be pro-life, it's me. Okay, my mother had 3 kids before she was 21 years old, and I simply don't subscribe to the fact that I'm somehow pro-choice. That's utterly false.
Thank you.